president did not write this letter, he did not sign this letter, and that's why the president's external legal team is aggressively pursuing litigation.
Palm Beach is a very small town, and so it's not surprising to me in part this collection of birthday cards and things like that.
This is Today as It Happened. Good Tuesday evening to you. I'm Holly Furfer, here with your chronological look at the biggest events and stories of the day. From the release of new files related to Jeffrey Epstein to Senate efforts to force through President Donald Trump's nominees amid Democratic opposition. But first, this morning, we took a look at Israel's strike on a Hamas target in Doha, Qatar. Israel has carried out an attack targeting Hamas leadership in Qatar. An explosion was heard in the capital city of Doha, but no immediate word on injuries or casualties. Qatar condemned the act, calling it a cowardly Israeli attack and a violation of international law. Scripps News international correspondent Blake Sifton is live for us in Tel Aviv right now. And Blake, what's the latest details that you have in the reaction on this Doha attack?
Good morning, Holly. This attack is, to be honest, shocking and unprecedented. I've been following the conflict for 20 years, and this is a massive surprise. The Israeli military says that they struck Hamas's leadership in Doha, Qatar. Residents in Qatar I spoke to said that they heard some 8 explosions coming from the Qatar district of Doha, which is a residential district. Hamas have said that the attack struck a meeting of their leadership, who were meeting to discuss a ceasefire proposal that President Trump had recently put to the group. And there are reports that at that meeting was the chief hostage negotiator for Hamas, as well as Khaled Mashal, who's a longtime leader of Hamas, who's been living in Doha, Qatar for quite some time. Now, while Hamas leadership has been decimated in Gaza, and we've seen the Israeli military strike and kill Hamas officials and leaders in Iran and in Lebanon. Those are enemy states for Israel. And the leadership was thought to be safe in Doha, Qatar, as well as in Turkey, where many of them live. Of course, Qatar is a major U.S. ally. It's home to U.S. Central Command, to a major U.S. air base. And the question now being asked is whether the United States had any part in this operation. Reuters news agency are reporting that Israel informed the United States before this attack took place. And just moments ago, the Israeli Prime Minister's office put out a statement saying Israel initiated it, Israel conducted it, Israel takes full responsibility. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu taking lengths there to try to impress upon the world that the United States did not participate in this attack. Now, it is sure to influence and affect hostage negotiations. We understand, of course, that Hamas was considering a proposal put forth by President Trump just days ago to release all 48 hostages held in captivity in Gaza as part of a ceasefire that could possibly lead to the end of the war. But Qatar is a major mediator in those talks. And as you say, they've called this attack cowardly, a breach of international law. And whether they will continue to facilitate hostage talks is a massive question now. The mother of one of the hostages held in Gaza said that the Israeli military may have killed my son by striking Qatar. And by that, she means that the potential for a hostage deal and a ceasefire looks more remote than ever after this attack in Qatar.
We will follow with you on updates on that situation. But I also wanted to shift a little bit over to Gaza City, because we're hearing about evacuation orders for Gaza City. What's the latest on that?
That's right. As this attack unfolds in Doha, Qatar, of course, in the backdrop, you have this massive escalation in Gaza City. Just today, the Israeli military ordered the entire population of Gaza City to evacuate. That's the first time they've made that call. In the last few days, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said that the gates of hell were opening in Gaza City. And after that, attacks spread beyond the outskirts of Gaza City, where the Israeli military has been operating for quite some time. And the Israeli military began bombing and destroying high-rise apartment buildings in the western part of Gaza City that had been reasonably untouched, that they say contained Hamas infrastructure. Now, with these evacuation orders, People I've spoken to on the ground in Gaza City have said that there's widespread fear there, that some people are planning to leave, but it's very difficult. There's very few vehicles to take people and very little fuel to power those vehicles. Other people want to leave but can't because they are ill or injured or simply don't have the money to do so. The UN has said that it costs some $1,000 for people to be moved from Gaza City to the south. Other people say that they simply don't think anywhere else in Gaza is safe, so they'll stay where they are. The Israeli military reportedly believes that some 200,000 people out of the population of 1 million in Gaza City will remain behind. Of course, the UN has said that Gaza City is the epicenter of famine gripping much of Gaza. And if this Israeli military offensive goes ahead, that hunger crisis is likely to get much worse. And those people who remain behind in Gaza City are likely to face considerable danger. And with this development in Qatar and the prospect of a ceasefire seemingly more remote than ever, that offensive to seize and occupy Gaza City does look likely to go ahead.
All right, Scripps News international correspondent Blake Sifton reporting from Tel Aviv for us. Great reporting. Thank you, Blake. We appreciate it. We'll keep in touch with you. A Michigan judge has dismissed criminal charges against a group of people accused of trying to falsely certify President Trump as the winner of the 2020 election in that state. District Court Judge Kristen D. Simmons said the 15 Republicans will not face trial. That case has been in the courts since Michigan's Attorney General announced those charges more than 2 years ago. Each person accused faced 8 charges of forgery and conspiracy to commit election forgery. The top felony charges carried a maximum penalty of 14 years in prison. Ford is recalling nearly 1.5 million vehicles in the U.S. because of a faulty backup camera. It impacts a wide range of vehicles built between 2015 and 2019. The company says cameras in affected models may show a blank or distorted screen while the vehicles are in reverse, increasing the risk for a crash. Ford says it is aware of 18 accidents but no injuries related to the camera issue. Owners will be notified by mail with information on free dealership repairs. The nation's high school seniors are testing lower in reading and math than they have in decades. The results of a National Assessment of Educational Process test shows 12th graders are showing the lowest performance in math since 2005, and reading scores among the same group are their lowest since 1992. The results indicate nearly 1/3 of high school seniors tested last year did not have basic reading skills. The testing data is the first of its kind released since the pandemic. Experts believe the declines are related to that disruption, as well as screen time increases among both adults and children. Coming up on Today As It Happened.
President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace.
Welcome back to Today As It Happened. All right, let's check back in on our daily briefing of the day's top stories.
Staggering numbers released from the Bureau of Labor Statistics today. Revised numbers showing employers added 911,000 fewer jobs than originally reported from April 2024 through March. Those numbers show the jobs market was much weaker in 2024 and earlier this year than first reported. The Supreme Court has voted to lift a restraining order that allows ICE to resume those immigration raids in Los Angeles. The decision was 6-3. The ruling now clears the way for the Trump administration to move forward with their immigration crackdown in Southern California. It could also open the door for stepped-up raids in more cities. A federal judge had said those raids amounted to racial profiling. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt addressing Israel's deadly attack on Hamas and their stronghold in Qatar. Let's take a listen.
Regarding the Israeli strike in Doha, how much time or how much of a heads up did the U.S. get, and does the president support the strike?
Sure. Well, I have a statement to read for all of you with respect to the Israeli strike in Doha, and here it is. This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
To be clear, the president disagrees with the location of the strike and that he passed that along to the Prime Minister Netanyahu.
The president just confirmed that in the statement that I just read to you, which I spoke with him about before coming out here.
Caroline,
Jackie.
Thank you, Karoline. So is the president upset with Netanyahu now?
The president made his thoughts and concerns about this very clear, and he spoke again both to Prime Minister Netanyahu and also the Emir and the Prime Minister of Qatar after this attack. And the president has always made it very clear that he wants peace in the Middle East, just like he sought that and accomplished that in his first term. He expects all of our allies and friends in the region, that includes both Qatar and Israel, to seek peace as well. And he wants to see that happen, and he's working with all of our allies in the region to get that done.
Are there any consequences, so to speak, for Netanyahu doing this, as it sounds, against the president's wishes, or at least his belief that it was appropriate? Is there going to be any directive from the president to Netanyahu in terms of what's allowed in the future? And also, is there any concern this could jeopardize the Abraham Accords?
Look, that's a decision only the president can make. With respect to your first question, to answer your second question, as you heard from the president, he said he believes that this can serve as an opportunity for peace, and he's still actively and aggressively pursuing it with all of our allies and partners in the region. Jennifer.
Just to follow up on that, Caroline, are you able to say how often the president spoke to the Prime Minister of Israel before this? Because that's one question. And then what did he mean on Sunday when he posted, "I've given my last warning to Hamas," etc.? He wasn't talking about this strike on Doha?
No, he was not. As I told you, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that Israel was attacking Hamas, and the president spoke to the Prime Minister after the attack, as well as, again, the Emir and the Prime Minister of Qatar. And I know Secretary Rubio and Special Envoy Witkoff were present for that call with the Qataris as well. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions for you on crime crackdown.
Sure.
Democrats have tried to argue that red states have higher crime rates while overlooking problems of high crime in blue cities. I'm wondering if the president would consider working with red state governors to fix high crime in blue cities like in Memphis, Tennessee.
So first of all, I want to get to the premise of your question, Reagan, which is being pushed by Democrats, that there is crime in red states. Of course, there is crime in all states, but the crime in these cities is all in cities that are run by Democrats. If you look at the list of the top 20 high crime cities in the United States, every single one, with the exception of one in Louisiana, is run by a Democrat. And these Democrats have supported the same policies that I spoke about at the beginning of this briefing, like cashless bail. If you look at a red state, Mississippi, but a Democrat-run city in that state, Jackson, in 2019, Jackson, Mississippi, eliminated cash bail for virtually all misdemeanor cases. And while Jackson is not formally a sanctuary city, the state of Mississippi formally banned sanctuary cities, and this city has acted as a de facto sanctuary city for criminals and illegal aliens since 2017. Same thing, Birmingham, Alabama, a Democrat-run city in a red state. In 2017, the Birmingham City Council unanimously passed a resolution, quote, committing to establish sanctuary policies. So if you actually look at the facts from these Democrat-run cities, these are cities that are run by Democrats and by by members of the Democrat Party. These are blue cities, and they have all supported these disastrous policies which allow repeated career criminals back onto the streets to further commit acts of violence. And so to answer your question, yes, the president wants to work with anyone across this country who wants to end these horrible policies and to bring law and order to our streets. And I think that is proven by his tremendous cooperation with the mayor of Washington, D.C. and our nation's capital. And just look at the results of that. And I do have some updates for you on the D.C. crime crackdown if anyone is interested. There have been a total of 2,177 arrests made since the start of the operation on August 7th. Just last night, there were 57 arrests made in Washington, D.C. Of the 57 arrests, there were 14 illegal aliens who were arrested, many of whom had prior criminal histories. And other arrests just last night in our nation's capital, so you all can be very grateful for this. Our great men and women of law enforcement, both federal and local, working together as they should, made an arrest on a warrant for assault with the intent to kill. The subject shot 2 adult males after an altercation. They made an arrest on a warrant for an armed carjacking. The subject assaulted an adult male in the face with a firearm and then took his keys. We also made an arrest on a warrant for simple assault and the destruction of property and subsequently charged with second-degree theft. Last night in D.C., there was an arrest for possession of a controlled substance with second-degree theft. There was an arrest for possession of a controlled substance with the intent to distribute. That subject, the person is also a subject of interest in a homicide and a carjacking. Last night in D.C., we also arrested a felon in possession of a firearm who was carrying that firearm without a license. So these are the career criminals. These are the bad guys that we are picking up in Washington, D.C. every day. The president would love to do this in every Democrat-run city across the country, and he hopes that more Democrats will call the White House to allow us to help them.
One more that's D.C. specific. Congress is poised to not extend Trump's federalization of the D.C. police. Mayor Bowser signed an executive order formalizing cooperation with federal forces. You just mentioned all the success that the operation has had. Does the White House believe that the Mayor Bowser's action is enough to continue the crime crackdown?
We are very grateful for the mayor's cooperation in this effort, and we look forward to continuing to work with her and the Metropolitan Police Department. Bloomberg.
Thanks, Karoline. The president says, he'll plan to speak with Putin soon. Can we expect a phone call between the two leaders this week?
I don't have any phone calls to read out between you, the president, and any other foreign leaders. Ed.
Thanks, Carolyn. I want to ask about the benchmark revisions that came out. If you look at the revisions between March of 2024 and March of 2025, and you do a little math, it averages out to 73,000 jobs roughly per month added to the economy, less than what was thought. When can we expect the Trump administration, now that their policies are rolling out, for that increase, that average to increase?
Well, let me just say something about the revisions that came out this morning. And this was one of the biggest revisions in absolute terms in decades. In the benchmark year, March 2024 to 2025, shows that the job growth was vastly weaker during the Biden administration than ever previously reported. Between this revision and last year's, job growth was actually overstated by approximately 2 million jobs.
About the Epstein case, would the White House support a professional handwriting expert review of the document released yesterday to prove that it's not the president's signature?
Sure, we would support that. And in fact, I have already seen many forensic analysts of signatures coming out. I believe it was the Daily Signal that published a piece with 3 separate signature analysts who said that this absolutely was not the president's authentic signature. And we have maintained that position all along. The president did not write this letter. He did not sign this letter. And that's why the president's external legal team is aggressively pursuing litigation against the Wall Street Journal, and they will continue to.
Up next on Today As It Happened. Rather than seeking out new job roles, new data shows workers are hanging on to their jobs for dear life. We're going to tell you about a new trend known as job hugging. You're watching Today As It Happens, Scripps News rundown of the biggest events and stories of the day. So let's get to it. From job hopping to job hugging, American workers are holding on tight to their jobs. Employees are staying in the same roles longer, worried about finding new employment in an uncertain economy. We all remember the Great Resignation after the COVID-19 pandemic, when workers were leaving their jobs in record numbers. Now the number of people voluntarily leaving their jobs this year has been around 2%, the lowest in nearly a decade. Laura Ulrich with Indeed says a combination of things are keeping workers in a holding pattern.
The job market has certainly softened. And at the same time, there's a lot of economic uncertainty in 2025. And when times are more uncertain, people tend to stay put.
New data shows job hoppers are seeing smaller pay raises than in 2022 and even less than before the COVID-19 pandemic. Ulrich says sticking with your current job makes better financial sense right now.
We are actually seeing an unusual pattern right now where wage growth for job switchers is actually lower than that of job savers. And so I think that does show quite a bit of stagnancy in the market.
Job hugging is happening mostly in white-collar jobs like finance, tech, and business services, including lawyers and accountants. It's also a tough climb for younger workers, but Ulrich believes that rising global trade tensions and the use of AI are only playing a small role.
If there aren't a lot of people leaving their jobs, and there's not a lot of people being laid off, there's not a lot of turnover going on, there's not room created at the bottom for new entrants.
New entrants like recent college grad Taylor Kuntz.
I feel like my days go by so slow because I'm like, what am I going to do next? What's my career going to be?
Ulrich believes that economic conditions need to pick up for the job market to improve. Holly Furfer, Scripps News, Atlanta. Coming up on Today as It Happened.
I want to see the story. I want to see the passion that you guys have in the news for these women. These women have been fighting for 30 years for justice, and they still don't have any, and they're never going to get it if you guys sit here and say Trump, Trump, Trump.
Welcome back to Today as It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer, here with your daily rundown of today's top stories.
A staggering number released from the Labor Department this morning, revised job numbers showing employers added 911,000 fewer jobs than first reported from April 2024 through March. Those numbers show the jobs market was much weaker in 2024 and earlier this year than first thought. Leisure and hospitality took the biggest hits with 176,000 fewer jobs reported. Let's go to the White House right now for our Scripps News White House correspondent Haley Bull, who just left the White House briefing. And Haley, this is going to be a case of where does the buck stop? Lots of people say they voted for Donald Trump because they thought he would be best for the economy. These numbers, nearly 1 million fewer jobs than first thought, is going to be a tough pill to swallow. So what exactly is the White House saying?
Well, Del, the White House is looking at this new data and saying that this revision bolsters their argument that the president is correct in their view about his critiques of the past administration's handling of the economy, as well as the skepticism they have put forth over the accuracy of the data itself. Last week's jobs data showing a slowdown in the labor market was the first since President Trump had ousted the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics while casting doubt over that data's accuracy. It also comes as Trump has criticized the data under previous President Biden's administration. And what we have seen both last week and today is the White House put the blame on the Federal Reserve, an entity of which, of course, they have mounted public pressure on to lower interest rates, accusing them of their economic woes. Listen.
Turns out this revision proves two things. Number one, the president was right, and this is why we need new leadership at the Fed. And this makes it very clear that President Trump inherited a much worse economy by the Biden administration than ever reported. And it also proves that the Federal Reserve is holding our monetary policy far too restrictive. Interest rates are too high. The Fed needs to cut the rates because of the mess that we inherited from the Biden administration.
And the White House is pointing to what they view as positive economic indicators, things like GDP growth, the pace of wage growth, and the level of inflation that they say has come down. At the same time, recent polling has still shown negative sentiment from Americans towards the economy.
Haley, let's turn to something that has been plaguing the administration. Of course, we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. What is their response to that birthday card on Epstein's 50th birthday that includes that crude drawing that appears to have Donald Trump's signature on it?
Yeah, the White House is issuing a strong denial of that, denying that the signature seen in those pictures released are that of President Donald Trump or that he made the drawing in the first place. NBC News reported that President Trump declined to comment. The network reported that Trump said, quote, "I don't comment on something that's a dead issue. I gave all comments to the staff. It's a dead issue." Now, while the administration has sought to focus on other issues, the topic of Epstein files continues to be one that this administration is, of course, pressed on. The White House press secretary calling Democrats' focus on it a, quote, hoax, and crediting Republicans and the Department of Justice with what she called transparency during today's White House press briefing, saying this.
The president cares about victims of all crimes, and that's why Republicans in the Trump Department of Justice have done more in terms of transparency when it comes to the Epstein case than any prior administration. And why are the Democrats all of a sudden caring about this? It's because they are desperately trying to concoct a hoax to smear the president of the United States. We have seen this time and time again. Ro Khanna and all of these other Democrats, they could have cared about those victims 4 years ago when Joe Biden was in office. They could have pushed for transparency then. Unfortunately, the Democrats are using victims as political pawns to try to smear and to push a hoax against the president of the United States.
Intel survivors have previously pushed back against the use of the term hoax in talking about this. Now, President Trump has already filed suit against the Wall Street Journal over its initial report on that birthday message, Del.
Yeah, one of those victims who took issue with the word hoax said she voted for Donald Trump. Scripps News White House correspondent Haley Bull for us. Haley, thank you very much. On Capitol Hill, Senate Republicans say they are now ready to change the rules to approve more of President Donald Trump's nominees. Now, the move comes after Democrats blocked almost all of Trump's nominations. Scripps News congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed is live in Washington, D.C. with all the details. And they talk about these rules changes. What does it mean for the Senate, and what exactly would change?
Well, Del, the goal here is to try and get some of these nominees into their positions in government much faster, and this has been something of particular focus for President Donald Trump. He's annoyed that some of these nominations, everything from ambassadors to U.S. attorneys to judges, are not going as quickly as he would like them to go. He'd like these people in their positions now, and this is due, according to Republicans at least, due to stalling from the Democrats, that they're holding up these individual nominations. Now, to be clear, a lot of these nominees are being confirmed to their positions, Del, but it's taking a really long time, and the reason is because Democrats can unilaterally slow down Republicans. They can deny unanimous consent, require roll call votes on things that typically don't get roll call votes. Basically, the TLDR is they can make something that could happen very quickly take a very, very long time, and that's precisely what they've been doing. The message from Democrats is, no, we are not stalling. We are doing our due diligence on President Trump's nominees, but Republicans look at it a different way. They think the Democrats are stalling, and they're hitting a breaking point. They've reached the point where they're willing to change the rules. So instead of having to vote on every single nominee, like let's say ambassador to Greece or U.S. ambassador to Switzerland, they can confirm a bunch of nominations all at the same time. Here's Senate Majority Leader John Thune.
To do what we have to do to catch up with the backlog by the end of this year, and that's just to get the backlog caught up. That doesn't include all the new nominees that are going to be coming through the pipeline. This can't continue. This process is broken. This is a business model that does not work when it comes to running and operating a government, and that's why it's got to be fixed.
And look, there's a fair amount of acknowledgement, Del, from Republicans here on Capitol Hill that changing these rules is probably going to have some impact on the Senate moving forward. In a future Democratic administration, there's nothing keeping, let's say, Senate Democrats, when they're in the majority again, from, voting to confirm, let's say, 10 or 12 nominees all at the same time, much like what Republicans are looking to do. So, again, this is not a decision that Republicans say they're taking lightly, but at the same time, one that they are taking the extraordinary step of to try and get all of these nominees confirmed, all at the same time, many of them at the same time, as opposed to the long, drawn-out process that we've seen so far. Senate Majority Leader Thune making clear the Senate has, set records for how many people they've confirmed up to this point, but for President Donald Trump, that is not enough. He wants a lot more of those nominees, many of them, campaign donors or people who are close to his orbit, confirmed to their positions, going to whatever embassy they're representing the U.S. from, abroad. Again, this is a top priority for President Trump and has been pretty much since day one.
You know, Nate, switching gears here, let's talk about what we talked about with Haley Bull just moments ago at the White House. The House Oversight Committee releasing those documents, including that letter that was said to be from Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein on his 50th birthday back in 2003. How are Republicans reacting? Because there are a number right now who are pushing to get even more files released. Does that throw that effort into jeopardy?
Yeah, there are 4 House Republicans who want to get all of the Epstein files released, everything that is not classified released under the law. Again, this is kind of an uphill battle, something where they're fighting with Senate Republican leadership on trying to get these documents out there. But at the same time, some of those Republicans, many of whom want all this information out there, you know, saying that they think that this letter that was disclosed by the House Oversight Committee is a distraction. They're not necessarily negating whether it's truthful or not, or whether it's the president's signature or not, but they're calling the entire thing a distraction from the goal of getting everything out there, and sunlight being the best disinfectant. Take a listen.
I think the document's a distraction. I do think that it does bear on the credibility of the people who are trying to keep these documents from being released. I mean, it's sort of indicative of the things that might come out if we were to release all of the files. In other words, embarrassing but not indictable.
My thing is, stop the about Trump. Keep the focus on the women. These women have been fighting for so long.
That was Representative Nancy Mace, certainly fired up about a lot of this stuff here. And again, a lot of questions about what comes out, whether this effort will succeed. It's somewhat of an insurgent effort. This is not something that's sanctioned by Republican leadership. In fact, Congressman Thomas Massie with some choice words, which we'll have for you next hour, Del, about House Speaker Mike Johnson. He thinks that Speaker Johnson is on the wrong side of history here. But again, it's a super minority of Republicans on the House side of the Capitol who are looking to get all of these files released. The vast majority of Republicans say they support the current efforts. They're not looking for this sideshow effort of getting every single file released. They don't feel like that's the right path forward. Certainly President Trump, as you heard my colleague Haley Bull talk about, has his own thoughts about this. He says the letter itself is a hoax. Not clear that Republicans agree with him there, even on the House side of the Capitol, but at the same time saying they still want all those files out there, despite the fact that a very embarrassing letter was released yesterday that, of course, reportedly is a drawing and a note from President Donald Trump, at the time just a private citizen, to Jeffrey Epstein on his 50th birthday back in 2003.
Our congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed for us on Capitol Hill. Nate, as always, we thank you.
We'll be right back with more of today's top stories on Today as It Happened. Welcome back to Today as It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer. All right, let's jump right back into our rundown of the top stories of the day.
Today, the earth shook in Cupertino, California. Apple finally unveiling its new lineup of products. This year, it was the iPhone 17 Pro that took center stage. The smartphone has undergone a major redesign. Among the changes, a new thermal system using vapor chamber cool. Now, if you don't understand exactly what that means, you're not alone, because I don't either. So we have just the person for you. That is Jefferson Graham, who is our travel and tech contributor. He was at today's event. Jeff, what is new with the iPhone 17 Pro, and is it worth the $1,100 price tag?
$1,200 price tag if you get the top of the line. It really depends on your point of view. Now, I will say that what you mentioned before about the thermal cooling is nothing that anybody's going to care about. What they will care about is selfies, and they've improved the selfie camera to be higher resolution and to fit more people in the frame. So I think you could forget everything else that they said here and just focus on that, and that would be a big thing for people to upgrade to. Plus the telephoto on the top of the line camera will be improved as well.
So what you're saying is everybody heard blah, 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 better selfies today. You know, Apple doesn't just make phones. They also have iPads, the iWatch, the AirPads. Are you expecting anything new with all these products as well?
No, they have the announcement today, and there may be in a month from now another announcement, but this is their big fourth quarter reveal. So today it was Apple Watch, it was AirPod Pro, and it was 4 new iPhones.
Jefferson, I'm old enough to remember when the lines around the Apple stores would start about right now, so that people could get the products just in time to say that they had the first one. I think I actually still have my Apple iPhone box, the Apple iPhone. I think that was just one. When will all these new gadgets be available?
Okay, well, I'm old enough to remember going to the line and interviewing people. Why are you sleeping in a tent for 5 days so you could be the first person on the street with an iPhone? And that pretty much ended about 10 years ago. They switched to this pre-order system online, and you just pre-order beginning this Friday, and then you'll have it delivered to you the following Friday.
So, Apple has been criticized because they say their AI technology has lagged behind a lot of others. Are we looking at improvements or updates now, even new technology of Apple Intelligence?
Very minimal, and you can knock Apple for it, or you could say, does anybody care? The one thing that I was really interested in was a feature they announced in June of 2024 that would have Siri find photos for me and help me edit photos. Well, none of that ever happened. I would like it if it ever does, because I think the biggest pain point for consumers is finding photos on their phone.
You know what else is another pain point for consumers? Price. How much they're going to have to fork out. We know that Apple has shifted its production to India from China. So what now? Are the days of the $2,000 iPhone fastly approaching?
Not this year, because the prices did not go up for the three levels of phones. The top of the line went up by $100. I was surprised because I thought the prices would go up in total. So I guess Tim Cook going to hang out with Donald Trump and handing him a golden apple, I guess that paid off for the company.
It paid off for us, too, to find out that you sat in a tent for 5 days for that first iPhone. Thanks for all the information, Jefferson. Live for us at Apple's headquarters in Cupertino, California.
Up next on Today's It Happened.
A new study finds kids are turning to artificial intelligence for conversations about relationships and even sex. I'm Maya Rodriguez in Washington. Coming up, what experts say parents need to pay attention to when it comes to who or what your child is talking to.
Debrief of our top stories of the day. So let's jump right back in.
The CDC says the kissing bug disease is now endemic. It's also called the Chagas disease. The condition occurs when the blood-sucking kissing bug transfers the Chagas parasite to a host. Since 2013, Texas A&M says there have been about 10,000 kissing bugs in some 31 states. Symptoms can include swollen eyelids, digestive problems, body aches, and fever. If left untreated, it can cause heart problems and serious digestive issues. Artificial intelligence is now woven into so many parts of our lives, from our smartphones, TV shows, suggestions, even medical devices. Now, this may feel new to you, but school-age children are essentially growing up in the world of artificial intelligence. Scripps News Global Affairs correspondent Maya Rodriguez is tracking this story. And Maya, kids aren't just getting AI to get a little bit of homework help. They're interacting with the tech in a way that could actually be hurting them as well. How?
Yeah, Del, more children and teens are turning to AI chatbots to ask for advice on sensitive topics like sex. A new report out finds they spend more time chatting online with AI than texting with their friends. Experts warn that some kids may be confusing chatbots with actual human relationships. As the use of artificial intelligence continues to spread, a growing number of children are turning to it for companionship. Those are the findings in a new report from the company Aura, which provides digital protection services. They found some children are having conversations with AI chatbots that are 10 times longer than the texts they send their friends.
We have kids 8, 10 years old that are using that we're seeing in our data that are using these platforms.
In analyzing how kids are using the tech, Aura found AI interactions ranging from homework and mental health to shared personal information, and even sexual and romantic role-playing.
that presents some big unknowns and potential problems for kids' development.
Experts say those potential problems can arise because children lack the emotional maturity to understand interactions with AI.
They have more magical thinking than adults, so they can really attach to an AI chatbot and think that it's human.
Joanna Parga-Balinki is a pediatrician and neonatologist. She's not involved in Aura's research, but says chatbots can be risky for young users.
There are just not a lot of safeguards in place to stop AI from telling children false, harmful, over-sexualized, or even violent things.
Experts say it's important for parents to take steps to talk to their children about safe and appropriate uses for AI.
Scripps News Global Affairs correspondent Maya Rodriguez with a report that every parent should be looking at. Maya, thank you very much. There is also developing news at this hour. Hamas is now saying that the intended targets of Israel's bombing in Doha, Qatar, survived. Hamas says all of its leadership made it out, but some lower-ranked members were killed. Earlier today, the Israeli defense minister saying it launched that attack on Qatar's capital city, significantly widening its campaign against Hamas. The location of the attack also is significant because Qatar serves as a key negotiator in peace efforts in the Gaza Strip. Qatar is condemning the attack, says it is a cowardly Israeli attack and a violation of international law. So we turn now to Scripps News international correspondent Jason Bellini. And Jason, President Trump is distancing himself from the bombing, saying this afternoon that the decision to strike Qatar was made solely by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This raises questions about just how much the White House actually knew about the strike. What have you learned?
Hi, Del. Indeed, some very big questions. Understand that in Qatar, the United States military has a major command center where it's monitoring the airspace. So the question that's not entirely clear right now, not fully answered right now, is when and how did Israel inform the United States that it was launching this attack? And we do have now the spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry of Qatar saying that he wasn't informed about it by the White House until the attack was already underway. He said that claims otherwise are baseless and that they first heard about it when they heard the sound of explosions caused by Israel's attack. We'll also note that Israel has been taking out successfully the militants of Hamas inside Gaza, but now they're apparently going after the political leadership of Hamas far from the Gaza Strip. It's entirely possible that the targets that Israel was seeking were killed because Hamas has taken months sometimes to admit when its officials, when its members have been killed, when members of its leadership have been killed.
Scripps News international correspondent Jason Bellini for us live in Washington, D.C. Jason, as always, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening for Today As It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer. Have a great Tuesday night.